There we go.
All right, looks like we're live.
Yeah.
So I'd like to call to order the meeting for Tuesday, May 4th, 2021, 6 p.m. of the Marquette Planning Commission. We'll start out with roll call. Commissioner Andres.
Present.
Commissioner Dunn.
Here.
Commissioner Middlefelt.
Yep.
And Commissioner Larson is here. And then we do have absences from Commissioner Brooks, Commissioner Cardillo, and Commissioner Primo. All right. So next on the agenda is to actually look at the agenda and approve the agenda. Does anybody have any comments on the agenda or any additions to the agenda?
Not here.
Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion to
So
approve
moved.
the May 4th, 2020 Planning Commission agenda as presented.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Got a
Second.
motion from Commissioner Andres and a second from Commissioner Mittelfeld. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Do we have any, taking a look at the minutes from for 2021, any comments on the minutes? Hearing none, we'll approve the minutes by consent, and we'll move on to conflict of interest. Does anybody have any conflict of interest with any of the parties or cases before us this evening? Hearing none, I think we'll then just move straight into our public hearings. So the first public hearing of the night is going to be 02 SUP 0521, 1103 and 1107 North Front Street. Andrea, would you help us out with that?
Staff has reviewed the special land use permit for a new duplex dwelling located at 1103 and 1107 North 4th Street. Please note on sheet A100, it's indicating a 6-foot high privacy fences in the side yard. However, this type of fencing is only allowed in the rear yard. So they will need to revise the drawings to indicate a 4-foot high with 50% open construction fence in the side yard. Attached to the memo was the staff report. And I'm showing it on screen here. So this is in the medium density residential zoning district, which has its permitted use. And then a duplex is a special land use, which is why we're hearing this request for tonight. And with the special land use, you have your requirements, the 4 requirements that you have to meet. And then the standards for a special land use review. And then attached was the special land use permit application, the area map, the block map, photos of the site, their site plan set, and a piece of correspondence that was received prior to the agenda going out. And then I did receive a piece of correspondence this afternoon, an additional one. From Margaret Jajic. Dear Andrea, thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed construction on Park Street. I am sending this email to you prior to today's hearing at 6 p.m. with the expectation that you will share it with appropriate members of the commission and staff. I will also try to join the meeting remotely using the Zoom link you have provided. My name is Margaret Jajic. My husband, James Jajic, and I have owned and occupied property at 328 West Park Street since 1980. Till recently, we have lived in what those of us on Park Street sometimes calls the neighborhood destruction zone. The hospital's activities in our neighborhood degraded our area and depressed property values for many years until their recent move to a new location. Neighbors and I have spoken to welcome plans by the city to put our neighborhood back together again, especially by adding attractive, affordable housing units to the city's tax rolls on lots left vacant by MGH's home removal policy. I have looked at the architectural drawings of the structure proposed for the corner of 4th and Park Streets, and I have a few questions. One, what is the current residential zoning for this area? I understand the neighborhood protection clause of MGH's institutional zone may have changed with the sale of this property to Majewski Architects. What is meant by the owner's request for a special land use permit? Does the approval of such use set a precedent for building duplexes on Park Street and other vacant lots in the neighborhood? How does this proposal conform to the City of Marquette's plans for residential development? At first glance, the structure is not in character with the historical nature of Park Street, single-family homes. Number 4, what is the intended market for and use of the proposed duplex? Sale to owners, build to rent, other. Number 5, has soil testing been done to determine whether remediation is necessary to correct contamination by the previous owner? Heavy and continual use of landscaping and lawn chemicals. I'd like to share with you several positive reactions to the proposed residential building. One homeowner said, great garages, no more vehicles parked on front lawns. Another owner hopes that new housing will encourage improvements to many older homes deteriorating with heavy student rental use in recent years. And while change is difficult, losing mature trees, shrubs, wildflowers, green space, we welcome the start of restoring a real neighborhood in a prime city location. Thank you for the chance to react to the proposal before you tonight. I think more property owners would have responded if they could have attended a hearing in person and had more time and information from the city zoning and planning departments. Please consider allowing Park Street homeowners additional opportunities to be informed and involved in decision-making as more development proposals come up for review. Many of us spent the better part of 5 years meeting with the local officials to achieve hospital compliance with an institutional zone that gave limited protection to single home owners in our area. We'd welcome an opportunity to participate with you going forward. Sincerely, Margaret Jajic, 328 West Park Street. And that was the only additional correspondence I received for this.
Thank you, Andrea. Do we have the applicant in the waiting room that we can bring in?
Yes. And I'm bringing in John Majewski and Josh Dawson.
Hi, John and Josh. Can you hear us just fine? I see Josh is actually still connecting.
Okay. Yep, I can hear you.
Hi.
Perfect. I don't know if you were watching on YouTube or not, but Andrea just kind of went over the initial piece of your application with us. But now we'd like to give the floor to both of you to kind of just discuss what you're asking to do here. Anything that you think the planning commission would like to hear.
Sure. I can kind of start off. Specifically, what we're trying to do is pretty much that neighbor wrote a very nice letter, which pretty much exactly hits what we're trying to do. I'm originally from Marquette. I grew up on Magnetic Street, and I saw the destruction of the neighborhood and never really fully understood why it was happening so piecemeal. I got the idea they're trying to create parking lots. And I also understand why that kind of had to happen. But when the opportunity came about to think about what would happen after the new hospital was built, we actually did a master plan for this area. And that master plan was used by several different entities that were looking at the hospital. And that fell apart for many different reasons. Basically, the demolition cost of the hospital, the environmental cleanup of the hospital, things associated with that. So that led to, I think, the hospital deciding to sell some of these lots. And as soon as I found out that they were available, which I was a little late to the party, to be honest with you, I only saw it when I was home for Christmas. And at that point, I bought 5 lots. So I bought everything that was remaining and that was still available. And that is a lot at 362 Park Avenue, a lot at 368. 2 lots with 2 weird addresses, but it's really just one parcel on Magnetic Street, right across from the emergency entrance. This corner lot, which had 2 addresses, but let's just call it 1103. And then there's one just down the block from this at 1115 North 4th Street. And my goal which was always the goal, was to kind of put the houses back to where they really belong, and kind of restore this neighborhood. I grew up in this neighborhood, so I know it. And I really wanted the opportunity to just find a way to put the homes back in a sense, in a scale that was something that was appropriate for the neighborhood, in scale with the surrounding homes, not trying to do anything too large, but I'm trying to find the right balance for what the neighborhood might need, what the people who want to live in that neighborhood are going to be looking for, and the ability to kind of meet the market conditions that are out there right now. So the homes that you're looking at for this particular lot, when we focus in on this one, this is the only one that we know we have plans to put a duplex on. And it's because it's a larger site and it meets the criteria that would allow it to be a duplex. We have had conversations with people in the city about the potential for other sites, but the sites that I listed off the addresses to you right now on Park Avenue, our intention is just to put a single family home on those locations. They're all smaller lots. They're not as big, beautiful lots, but they're, 45, 46, 47. They're generally narrower in width, and they wouldn't permit the idea of a duplex. So the reason we're really here tonight to see you is the opportunity to duplex. The purpose of us doing a duplex is this is a very large lot for this neighborhood. And there's a great opportunity for us to help keep the costs down to do 2 homes on one larger lot, which at one point actually was 2 parcels, but both of those parcels were long and narrow and they fronted on 4th Street. Originally we thought maybe we could just put the homes in front 4th Street, but that didn't really feel very neighborhoody on 4th Street. So we really like the idea of having the homes front Park. And for that reason, that's why we ended up with this plan. We've gone through it and worked with Andrea to kind of come up with things that generally would be conforming in nature. It's our understanding that as a duplex, there has to be some part of the units that actually adjoin each other. So that's basically what we've done with these 2 units next to each other. What we're showing you is 2 homes that probably will have a basement, but they don't have to have a basement. But they would end up being around 2,000 square foot each. They'd have a 2-car garage, and they're envisioned to be a 3-bedroom home, with all 3 bedrooms being on the 2nd floor and all the living areas being on the 1st floor. We think they actually fit really nicely on this particular parcel.
I apologize for interrupting. Andrew, would you mind just bringing that up on the screen?
So the architectural sense of what we're trying to create with these is really to keep the strong gable shape that you might see with a traditional home, but actually do it in a more clean and consistent way with something that might be a little bit more transitional architecturally. And I think it still will be something that can be relatively considered timeless as time would go on. But when you have a duplex next to each other, what we did want to make sure is that each owner has a bit of character and a bit of charm with their individual home, even though these 2 homes generally are basically very similar, exactly, and just the flip-flop on either side of each other. So that's effectively how we got here. I think I did want to take this opportunity to answer a couple of the questions. The first page might be best, Andrea, because it's got that kind of rendering, if that helps. I don't know if that's in your set, but our intended use for these duplexes and for all the homes that we're building is to build them to resell. And we're trying to do this in the most affordable way we possibly can. And to do that, we have to try to keep things efficient in the use of materials, the way that we build it, the design, and also the construction types of how things come together, and square footage. So in fact, these are not huge homes, but they're not small. 2,000 square feet, 1,000 square foot on a living area, I think is a really decent size. And to be 100% honest with you, of the homes we're intending to do, these will probably be the larger of those homes. Because we're doing the duplex, we want to be able to offer a little bit more opportunity for a little more space inside on these lots, and especially because the lots are a little bit larger in size. So the intent is to sell these 100%. I'll never preclude the idea that we would have the possibility to rent them, but they're not being built as rentals. The materials will all be built for sale. And when we would sell them, the new owner obviously has the right to do whatever they would want to do with it. There's fair housing guidelines, so I always want to be careful about what I'm saying when it comes to that. But our intent is to build to sell. Whether we build these first or we build one of the single family, my gut feeling is we'll actually build the one that's behind this, that is conforming on a lot, smaller lot, but it'll be a smaller home. That is actually going to be the first one that we'll build, and that'll help people understand the model and the finishes and some of the materials that will happen with the site. We understand that the neighborhood's concerned about rentals and students, and we support their concern 100%. We don't have anything against students, but they're not going to help the neighborhood improve. What we're really hoping to do is to bring people back into this neighborhood who want to live here. Could be empty nesters, it could be families. We cannot control who moves into it, but we certainly can design towards what we're looking for. And right now that will split from families to empty nesters. That's kind of the focus of what we're looking at. These are 2 stories, so they probably are more transitional for families. And we are looking at doing some that will be a single level home, and that would obviously be more available to empty nesters and seniors because everything will be on the same floor. So again, for sale, not for rent. We'll do anything we can to help improve the neighborhood in that regard, but the best thing we think we can do is just to add to the housing stock and build new housing. Another question that came up is we are not aware of any remediation that needs to happen on this site. Talked it over with my mother. The furthest we can go back is we know this used to have a grocery store on it. I can't tell you that we're not going to find a fuel oil tank or something, but it is not a commercial site. So we do not have any concerns of environmental cleanup, but we will go through the process and follow all the guidelines that are required to clean up this site if anything were to be discovered. So effectively, that's the overall goal. I know some people will probably be wondering what these things and what these different homes might cost. And that's a really tricky question right now. These are being bid out. This particular one is not going to be bid out until I have a chance to make sure that we can do it and get it approved. But some of the smaller ones that we're doing are being bid out, and we've gotten numbers back. And our goal on our smallest home is to actually offer it at around the $225,000 range. And we know this neighborhood has kind of a limit on where we can go with costs, but we know there's a strong desire for people associated with the university, people who just want to kind of move back into the city. And that's the market and the target that we're going after. So we think basically compared to the values of some of the things that are out there right now, that should be considered affordable. It's not really super inexpensive, but it's a market that does not exist right now. So a lot of these homes that sold by the hospital that were around here, many of them were listed 125, 135, 140,000, and they all sold in the upper hundreds. So they sold for far more than market or what they were asking for. So I think getting above that $200,000 mark for a brand new home is something that seems quite reasonable. And we kind of hope that by doing this, it'll bring more people back to the neighborhood. Every home that we're going to do will either have a 2-car garage, or if it's a very small home, we would potentially look at doing a 1-car garage. There would always be parking available in front of the garage, so there should not be any on-street parking issues. And with that, I can kind of turn it back to any questions. Our intentions are 100% to just be able to do something that's kind of good for everybody. We are, doing this as something where we want to make a profit, but I'll be honest, our profits are going to be very low, and maybe on the few houses, very low. But our longer term goal is to do this. And we had approached the hospital to purchase all of the lots and parking lots along Magnetic Street on this side of Magnetic Street, so the south side of Magnetic Street. And unfortunately, they weren't willing to sell us all of those parking lots at this point, but we'll still keep working on them. And hopefully we're able to kind of work that back. And if we are able to do that, that would be the same intention. We'd still want to do single family homes, but we might come back to you at some point because that's a large parcel and see if there's the opportunity to do duplexes on that location as well. Again, the intent is not to jam homes in or to have anything be too tight, but it's just to keep costs down as much as possible.
Thank you. Josh, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you very much. Well, we'll withhold our questions until we get to our kind of our discussion point here, if that's all right. And Andrea, do we have anybody that for public testimony?
So there are 11 people in the waiting room. Are we wanting me to bring each one in one by one to find out if they're for this case? And then if they're for another, that's how we'll find out. Does that sound all right?
Either that or bring them all in at once and then just ask them.
All right. Margaret Jajich. Can you hear? Are you there? Okay, I'll keep her here and bring somebody else. She's the one that wrote the correspondence.
Try to write down which cases they're for as we go.
Hi, Nicholas. Are you here for the first case?
Is this for the Fisher Street location?
No. Okay, so you're here for the rezoning case?
Yep,
Okay, I'm gonna put you back in the waiting room then. Thanks.
you're welcome.
So you got that, Dave?
Yeah.
Hi, Michelle. Are you here for the North 4th Street case? Hi, Michelle. Can you hear me? Are you here for the North 4th Street case?
Which case are you here
Nope,
to
the
speak on?
rezoning case.
Okay. We're gonna put you back in the waiting room then.
Still on the first case.
Yeah. Hi, Michelle. Can you hear me? Hi, Kayla. Are you here for the duplex case?
Nope,
Are you here for the North 4th Street case?
Fisher Street.
Fisher Street? Okay, I'm gonna put you back in the waiting room.
Which case are you here?
Okay. Hi, 3623069. Are you here for a public hearing to speak on the duplex North 4th Street case? Here for the duplex case?
Nope,
Are you here for the North 4th Street case?
Fisher Street.
Fisher Street? Okay, I'm gonna put you back in the waiting room.
Which case are you here?
Okay, I have one more. Hi, 8694912. Are you here to speak for the public hearing on the duplex North 4th Street case? Okay, so I'm not getting a response from them or the JJIC. So do you just want me to put them back in the waiting room then?
Yeah, I think that person is here for the Fisher Street case as well.
Okay.
And let's see, she might be on mute right now. Let's give her one more opportunity to see if she can
Yeah.
take herself off mute.
JJ.
I was told I could write or speak, but not both, so I won't be speaking. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, well, you can speak, you can do both. But if you don't want to speak, I'll put you back in the waiting room.
All right, thank you. All right, well, hearing, if we have no others for public testimony, I think we'll move on to commission discussion, in which we can discuss amongst ourselves. We can have a motion to suspend the rules. We can also, at this point in time, if we need to ask the applicant any particular questions, we can make that happen as well. So I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules, or a motion on the case, if you think appropriate.
Motion
make
to
a
suspend
motion.
rules.
Nope.
We have a motion to suspend the rules for Commissioner Andrus. We have a second.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Middlefelt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Rules are suspended. We can speak freely. We'll start out with Commissioner Andrus.
I really didn't have any questions. I just wanted to get the conversation moving.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Middlefelt.
Yeah, just wondering if Mr. Majewski could speak to, we saw another piece of correspondence in our documentation from a neighbor that was generally really supportive of it. I mean, I think everything I've read and what you presented looks excellent and does really meet a lot of the different aspects of the community master plan. But one thing that the resident who wrote the letter was concerned about, or just curious about, was about landscaping, I believe, and the replanting of trees. I know on the site plan that you submitted, it looked like existing trees would be preserved if possible, but if you could maybe address the landscaping plans and, trying to make it not just architecturally fit into the neighborhood, but thinking about the landscaping plans as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's excellent point to bring up, but we fully intend to actually do a really great job on the landscaping. One of the things we wanted to do is just put a fence around it to give the neighbors some privacy on both sides of that. We do need to do a little bit of buffering on the back of the landscaping from that brown house that's there, because that is full of college students. Nothing against that, but it is something that will be an issue for us. So we'll probably be buffering with landscaping, most likely arborvitae and a couple of extra trees that would give us a little bit of density immediately. And then we'll do planting along Park Street and a little bit along 4th Street, all around the outside perimeter of the fence. We'll probably leave some of the heavy duty landscaping within the fence. It'll all be lawn. So we would intend to sod it all, but any of the areas we'll leave some planting beds that will be available within the fence. And that's really intended just for the purchasers to have their ability to kind of do their own landscaping within. So there are a few trees. We are disappointed always when we have to take any trees down. We're trying to keep basically 4 of them on the site that are there, but several of those trees are directly in the center of the lot, and they will unfortunately need to be removed. There's just really no way around that to kind of find a way to develop the site. Basically, they sit right in the center. And I think overall, the idea of the landscaping and the fronting and the fence and the way that we would do it is to get to be a good neighbor to Park. And so that we look like we're 2 new homes on Park that are kind of something that's in the scale with the rest of the homes that are there. Whereas if we fronted 4th Street, we'd kind of have our side, a very long side facing that part of the property. And then we'd have 2 houses that front a busy street. So we think this is kind of a win-win situation where we can improve this particular piece of property. And if people feel that what we're doing then helps to improve the neighborhood, I think it certainly does, and that we'll be slowly filling in the missing teeth that exist in the neighborhood on these lots.
Great. And another question too, staff noticed that there was a 6-foot high privacy fence listed in there on the side yard, and they were asking if that could be reduced to a 4-foot height to comply with
Yeah.
the land development code. Is that a problem? Is that going to be?
No problem. Yeah, we'll do that. We just wanted on that one side I was mentioning that we would want to reduce the height on effectively the north side, or to get as much height as we could for the fence because of the home that's there. But what we'll do is we'll just do the 4-foot fence, and then we'll landscape within our property to give us a little bit better buffer, most likely with evergreens and arborvitae.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Dunn.
Hi, I had a question regarding the canopy, and if either of the applicants could chime in on this, but I'm kind of curious as to why the canopy wasn't extended around to the south elevation, just to try and I guess get a little bit of a benefit from shading the high summer sun and letting in the winter sun, just having a little bit of overhang over the first floor windows.
Yeah, it's a great question, and we did look at that. What it felt like it kind of started to do was really pull the two homes together a little bit stronger than we would like. And it kind of made it felt a little bit more like one building than kind of giving us some separation and privacy between the two. So we just thought that was a better element, because we understand the shading for sure. But because we're in a northern climate, we wanted to really fill the room with as much sun as possibly we could. So we'll be using, argon-filled glass with, all the solar possibilities that we can get out of glazing for it. But that's really the only reason. And then the idea is that it just connects the front door and the back door. So we are trying to do things as minimal as possible, again, just to keep the costs down.
Makes sense. And another kind of design question that's, again, it's not really relevant to the approval, but just for my understanding of the design and such, but it seems like the Park Street elevation is going to be great. But I'm wondering what the view is going to be from 4th Street. It looks like it's going to be looking at the side of the barn, and I've seen those elevation drawings. I'm having a hard time kind of seeing what they're going to be like together, and I'm wondering if with the fence and then the garage without really any glazing, and then I'm just kind of wondering if that's going to be a fairly industrial sort of look there from that side, and wondering if there's anything in the landscaping plan that I might have just even missed it, but if there's anything in the landscaping plan that might kind of soften that up a bit.
Yeah, well, I think our intention is to actually have that side. It's basically somewhat of a side yard, but you're 100% right. It's the front yard for 4th. And so our intention is in front of the fencing areas to really landscape that. We do have to deal with this corner. There's this double corner angled setback for the landscaping and the view corridor, but we can actually still put that landscaping that we want to have to soften that. So the first idea is the fence kind of is somewhat of a buffer. And then the second idea is to have plantings that go up above that. The garage is simple on its side, there's no question, but the front and back, I think, are going to have this contrasting wood element. And so that what you're looking at there is that's actually intended to be a stained cedar on the front and the back. And so it does have some contrast, but there's some simplicity to that. And we're hoping that really just that simple, clean design, coupled with the layering of going from the fence, landscaping to the garage, to then the house setback at the furthest point to it, and some of the trees that we have will really help to soften that blow. So well aware of it, and we definitely will be going out of our way to improve that.
Awesome. Thank you. And then my last question that's really totally irrelevant for approval, but just out of curiosity, are you going to be able to hold on to that big, huge evergreen on the southwest corner?
I have to, I'm not sure if we actually can, to be honest with you. It's effectively pretty close, right, Josh?
Yes. Yeah, that one's pretty close to where we're placing some of the elements.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
garage.
so
Yeah.
maybe the garage. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, well, no,
I mean,
you gotta do what you gotta do. Just curious.
Yeah, if we can, we certainly will. But if we don't want to chop half the branches off and have it look odd as well.
Thank you.
All right, and from my point of view, I think it makes sense. Glad to see some potential development in this neighborhood and bringing some family housing back into the neighborhood. It's certainly good to see. Do we have any more questions or discussion amongst commissioners? If not, I would entertain a motion one way or the other.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. After review of the staff report analysis for 02-SUP-05-21, the Planning Commission finds the request meets the intent and requirements of the Land Development Code, sections 54.1403 and 54.613, and hereby approves 02-SUP-05-21 as with the following conditions that staff recommends conditional approval, that the amended plan is submitted to meet staff comments regarding the fencing, moving from the 6-foot fence to the 4-foot fence and the 50% open construction on the side yard.
We have a second.
Second.
We got a motion from Commissioner Middlefeld with a second from Commissioner Dunn. All in favor? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes 4-0. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe Andrew will be in touch with you sometime after this meeting here.
Appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you. All right, moving on, we have our second public hearing for the night, B, which is going to be 03 SUP 05-21 450 East Ohio Street. Andrea, if you wouldn't mind taking us through this.
Staff has reviewed the special land use permit for an accessory unit dwelling located at 450 East Ohio Street. Please note that on March 31st, 2021, the applicant received a zoning compliance permit approval for a 26-foot by 32-foot detached garage with a height of 16 feet to 2.5 inches, that the upper floor would be used as a garage for storage and parking of vehicles, and the lower floor will contain a half bath, sink and toilet, and be used as an entertainment area or home office space. With the condition that it is not for a separate dwelling unit and bathing, shower, and kitchen facilities are not allowed to be developed. But however, the applicant at the same time had wanted to submit for this request with the understanding that if they do not get approval from the Planning Commission, that they can only have the garage used as stated above per that permit that I just referenced. So in the agenda, you had the staff report and analysis, showing it on screen. Again, you got your permitted uses and your special land uses, and this is in the medium density residential district. An accessory dwelling unit is a special land use. And with that, there are conditions in the ordinance that the applicant must meet. And then the special land use standards. On screen is the application that the applicant submitted, along with a narrative answering all the requirements questions. The area map of the parcel, it is highlighted in blue. The block map of the parcel, again, is highlighted in blue. Photos of the site. The proposal with the proposed garage location, which is the accessory dwelling unit that they're requesting. This is showing their first floor plan, and then the basement plan is, which is where they would like to have the dwelling unit, but the first floor being where they park the vehicles. The roof plan, sections, elevations. And then I did receive 2 pieces of correspondence for this after the agenda was posted. On 5/3/2021, this letter is in support of the special land use permit for 450 East Ohio Street. Ryan Brayak's application includes a carefully consideration of requirements for this permit application. His letter references Article 6, standards applicable to special land use, Section 54-612, dwelling accessory unit. We are neighbors near to this project. Our reasons for supporting this plan: this is an acceptable use for the lot. The plan does not increase density of the neighborhood. The plan has marginal impact on any adjacent neighbors. The plan does not appear to have any capacity to expand and have a larger impact in the future. Ryan Brayak's superb sense of aesthetics is already recognized by the city of Marquette by the inclusion of his work at the refurbished Memorial Father Marquette Park. Is our conclusion that the neighborhood will be enhanced by this project by Ryan Brayak, Babette Welch, and Greg Seipel. And then we had at 424 Cedar. Then we had another piece of correspondence. To whom it may concern, my wife, Marjorie Fear, and I own and occupy the property at 415 Cedar Street, which is within 300 feet of the above referenced property. We are writing to indicate our support for the proposed special land use permit for an accessory dwelling unit. The ADU is well designed and will fit in nicely with the surrounding neighborhood. Care was taken by the applicant to ensure that the ADU would not block any views of neighboring properties. Finally, we are hopeful that the city of Marquette will modernize its building development codes to permit more ADUs in order to realize the many benefits of ADUs, including increasing the supply of affordable housing and increasing the property tax base. My sister-in-law, professor of architecture at the University of Michigan, sits on the planning commission of the city of Ann Arbor, which is in the process of updating their zoning codes to permit more ADUs. She has educated us on the many benefits of the ADUs. My parents, Ross and Deb Fury, which live within 300 feet of the proposed ADU at 442 East Michigan, are also supporting the proposed ADU for the same reasons and are copied on this email. Adrian Fury. And that's
All
it.
right. Thank you for that. Do we have the applicant in the lobby?
No.
All right. If the applicant is not here, did we have anybody that was speaking, to this for public testimony?
No.
Okay.
Well, there is a Jim in there now. I don't know. I'll have to bring him in because I don't know.
Yep.
It's a good person.
Let's bring Jim in and ask him.
Hi, Jim. Are you here to speak for the 450 East Ohio public hearing?
Classic.
Do you just want me to put him back in the waiting room?
Let's give him 1 second.
Hi, Jim. Can you hear us?
Hello, Jim?
Hi, Jim. Are you here to speak for the public hearing at 450 East Ohio?
I don't know that that's the case. So I think
Okay.
we can see if he connects to audio here. If you'd like just to hold him there.
He's connecting to audio. Jim, which case are you here for?
Hi, Jim. Can you hear us? Oh, we
You're on
can't hear you for some reason.
Can't hear you. unmute, Jim? We can't hear you.
I don't know. I just sent him a text message chat. A chat message, not a text message. Okay. Well, given these, we can't hear you though. All right, so he's here for the Fisher Street case. Even though you are here, we for some reason can't hear you, so you may need to use the call-in number if you wish to make testimony when that comes up. So we're going to probably put you in the waiting room for right now while we complete the Ohio Street here. So not having any additional public testimony for 450 East Ohio, and without the applicant here, I would entertain a motion from the commissioner to suspend the rules, or to make a motion, to go one way or the other with the proposal that's in front of us.
Motion to suspend the rules.
Got a motion to suspend the rules from Commissioner Middlefelt and a second from Commissioner Dunn. Commissioner Middlefelt, would you like to start off?
Yeah, I just had a question about.
You need a roll call vote.
Oh,
Oh,
right.
I'm sorry. Yes. Thanks. Do we have a vote? We have a motion on the floor to suspend the rules with a second as well. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. Motion passes. Commissioner Middlefelt, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, I think I have a question that I feel like we might have talked about in the past, but I just wanted to get clarity on this. I'm excited to see an ADU application come across our desks. And I think we'll see more of them. I was wondering about how the short-term rental process fits in. So let's say, I believe this property will be, part of it anyway is going to be Airbnb, not the short-term rental. But if a person is building an ADU and they have a permit to do Airbnb at that property, my understanding is they can't rent out the ADU. Is that correct, Andrea?
Correct. The item, here, I can show you here on screen. Item K, under the requirements, says duration of the lease or rental. Leasing or rental of the ADU for less than 30 days is prohibited.
Okay.
And the applicant wrote understood.
Okay. That's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify my understanding. That was what I assumed. And that's something we might, yeah. Different can of worms, not related maybe right now, but just something to think about.
Commissioner Dunn.
Yeah, I actually am wondering about, I guess it's condition, or not condition, but the standard for approval H for the attachment options. I think it was probably just an oversight or a lack of creativity on our part, but the actual verbiage in that letter H there for the attachment option says that if it's a detached structure that the ADU is located in, it needs to be on the second floor. This one appears to be on the lower level, which in my opinion meets the intent of what we were trying to do there. But we may want to go back and look at that verbiage, how we have it in the code.
I think you're right, Commissioner Dunn, that was an oversight. And if, this case presents an opportunity to demonstrate that there's a completely viable first story ADU, then I think that bears that upon us to make an interpretation that that was an oversight in the code, and we could move forward with that interpretation.
I would be in favor of that, since particularly with accessibility issues as well.
Anything else to add, Commissioner Dunn?
Yeah, like I said, I'm in favor of that as well. I fully believe that the intent of that statement was to make sure that it was part of the structure. I don't think that anyone intended to mandate that it was only on a second floor and it couldn't be on, especially in a situation like this where the second floor is the only viable option for vehicle parking. You know, so again, I think that the intent is certainly met.
Thank you. Commissioner Andres, do you have anything else to add?
No.
And as for myself, I'm happy to see that, you know, we have an application, you know, before us, you know, for an ADU that looks as though it does meet everything in the land development code. And I would also be in favor of making that interpretation. So given that, it seems to be pretty straightforward. Certainly would entertain a motion on this item.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. After review of the staff report analysis for 03-SUP-0521, the Planning Commission finds the request meets the intent and requirements of the Land Development Code, sections 54.1403 and 54.612, and hereby approves 03-SUP-05-21 as presented.
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Middlefeld and a second support by Commissioner Andres. Now take a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. And without the applicant here, Andrew will be in touch with them, you know, after this meeting. Moving on to our final public hearing for the night. We have item C 02REZ0521 at 616 Fisher Street. Andrea, if you wouldn't mind taking us through.
The Planning Commission is being asked to make a recommendation to the City Commission regarding a request to rezone the property located at 616 Fisher Street that is zoned medium density residential, MDR, to be zoned mixed use with conditional rezoning, MUCR. Pursuant to the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, Public Act 110 of 2006 as amended, Section 125(3405), an owner of land may voluntarily offer in writing, and the local unit of government may approve certain use and development of the land as a condition to a rezoning of the land or an amendment to a zoning map. On screen is the memo, and then attached with the staff report. And that's showing all of the current zoning information. And then the proposed zoning with conditions. The applicant is proposing to cross out the highlighted and struck through permitted principal uses within this. And then the zoning ordinance amendment procedures. And the conditional rezoning information. And on screen is the application with their support material. And again, here is their attachment striking out certain uses. On screen is the area map. The parcel is outlined in blue. The block map, the parcel is outlined in blue. The zoning area map, again, the parcel is outlined in blue. Existing photos of the site. the mining journal notice, the excerpt of the master plan showing the future land use map and indicated with the location. And again, the excerpt of the community master plan with the proposed zoning map, rezoning considerations for the planning commissioners, and then a correspondence that was received prior to the agenda being posted. And then I did receive correspondence on Monday. My name is Michael Lenton. I am a clinical social worker who has served the residents of this community for 15 years. I spent a decade with Pathways Community Mental Health, and I am now in private practice in Marquette at UP Counseling, as well as a homeless prevention and stabilization clinician for Veterans Health Administration in Marquette. I'm writing to express my support in senior housing solutions zoning of Fisher Street location. As a clinician in the area, I have had both current and historical connection to the Fisher Street location. SAH is continuing the tradition started by Bender's Boarding House by assisting those Marquette residents who are simultaneously significantly at risk, low income, and high need in acquiring safe, centrally located, and stable housing options. In the last 2 years, I have witnessed Ryan Redmond's efforts to expand the usefulness of SAS in the Marquette area. They are often the first on the scene, the first to assist, and willing to pick up pieces that are all too often dropped by the system as a whole. I encourage this community, the committee, and all other entities who have a stake in assisting Marquette's homeless population to do their best to support all SAS is and will be doing in the future. No system is without its faults, cracks, and weaknesses. SAS provides a safety net for those residents who all too often fall through those imperfections in the system. They're a vital and needed resource, and they deserve the support of the community in furthering their mission. Thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day. And that was it with correspondence.
Okay, and is the applicant here in the waiting room?
Yes. So I'm pulling in Michelle Hawley, Ryan Redmond, and the property owner, Tina Bender.
Let's just wait for. Tina, are you with us? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Right. So right now, we just had the city staff take us through the initial application, what has been submitted thus far. I would like to give your team an opportunity to kind of explain what the situation is, hear from your point of view, and bring us through your application somewhat.
Yes.
Right. Right now, also, if somebody has YouTube on, please shut your YouTube video off, as we can hear it in the background. What has been submitted thus far, I would like to give your team an opportunity to kind of explain what the situation is. All right, I think we got that settled. So I don't know who from your team would like to speak first.
Ryan, go ahead.
Actually, could I start? Is that okay?
Sure, Michelle.
Okay, thanks. I just want to provide a little bit of background to the commission. I'm the attorney for Superior Housing Solutions and put together the application. Ryan will be able to answer any questions about what's actually occurring at the home as far as the services that are being provided to the residents and so on and so forth. But I think it's important for the commission to understand that this application is requesting nothing more than what has been going on at this home for almost 40 years now. In 1990, I think it began in 1982, the home was licensed as an adult care facility. And then in 1992, that transitioned to basically a boarding home, as it was considered under the city's ordinance at that time. And 16 residents were allowed at that point through the use of a variance. And the variance specifically states that that the owner at that time cannot sell the home with the variance traveling along with to the new owner. So at this point in time, Tina Bender, she's the owner, she's here with us. She is ready to sell the home. Superior Housing Solutions, the co-applicant with Tina, is ready to purchase the home. They have not done so yet, but they would like to do so. But their interest in the home certainly is to continue running the home essentially as it has been operating for all of these years, for approximately 40 years. So because of that variance language, really the rezoning is the most appropriate method the city has to address this particular conundrum, really. I submitted the application, and in it, we walk through the parameters set out in section 54.1405H, which is the conditional rezoning section. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about that. But probably your questions really go more to the operation of the home, and Ryan is the person to answer those questions. But I just wanted to make sure that you were thinking about this application in the context of the property's history and the historical use that has been going on there for decades, literally decades. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan, would you like to chime in with your perspective on operations as it pertains to the application?
Yes, sir. As Michelle said, we are just continuing the use of the house with additional supports to ensure the participants' success. We have ongoing support at the location from ACT, which is a community team through Pathways that checks in daily with about half of the residents that are there. We have community health workers that are there more probably 3 to 4 times a week, considering the workload. The community health workers deal with the social determinants of health. They do everything from provide that primary care physician to transportation to that, to rehab facilities, to treatment centers. We have we have people with diabetes in there that we have actual care that takes place in the house. We have a doctor that comes to the house as well for one of our participants because of his shortcomings and his reclusiveness.
Thank you. Tina Bender, would you like to speak to this at all?
Yes, we, my mother-in-law owned the home for many, many years, ran it. And she passed away in 2011. So my husband and I took over, and we wanted to move. So we started hunting, and it took about probably about 1.5 years to get to where we could make some sort of a deal with Ryan to at least keep it going for us until we could get to this point. So we want to help people. My mother-in-law and father-in-law helped people. And so we didn't want to just sell it as an ordinary house. You know, it's not an ordinary house. It's got 8 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. You know, it's pretty large, and a standard family would not work. So it would be our dream and our desire to keep it as it is and rezone it as it should have been properly a long time ago, maybe.
Understood. I think we're going to withhold our questions, at this particular time. So if there's nothing else you want to add at this moment, I think we'll withhold our questions. We, as it is a public hearing, will invite anybody who wants to give public testimony in. After public testimony takes place, at that point in time, the commissioners, will come back, discuss, and we will ask questions, to the applicant group at that point in time. So Andrea, if you wouldn't mind bringing in all the folks that would like to make public testimony, that would be super.
Am
We'll
I the
just do it. I think we'll do it one. Are we doing it one at a
One at
time?
a time.
Andrea. All right. So
Yep.
we're gonna do it one at a time. You have Nicholas. If you're there, you've got 3 minutes.
Okay, and this is on the Fisher Street
Yep.
location?
Oh yes. Yeah. This is on the Fisher Street location. This is our last public hearing for the night.
And zoning, and we're talking about the mixed use permit?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to speak in support of this rezoning. I wanted to say that Superior Housing Solutions.
So could you also please state your name and address? I apologize. I should have said that right off the bat.
Sorry, it's been a while since I've done one of these. Nick Emmendorfer. I live at 609 Pine Street.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. So here today to speak in support of the rezoning for the Fisher Street house. The hearing is for today. I've worked closely with Superior Housing Solutions since they've opened, and their executive director, Ryan Redmond, and their board. They're a great organization, and they're filling a lot of gaps in service. And as you know, I work as executive director for Room at the Inn, and we opened our permanent shelter, which was a great step for this community. But if we really want to address homelessness, we need other agencies like the one before you tonight to fill other gaps and to give outlets from the shelter so that we have places to move individuals into out of homelessness. So I think this would be a great use for the Fisher Street location, for another housing option for people in our community. And I think it's run by a great organization. So I appreciate the committee tonight having this hearing. And I hope you guys vote in favor to approve the rezoning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Andrea, would you like to bring in the next individual?
So I think it would be great to boost tourism and the local economy, and also it'd be great for the community for future nonprofit events.
Hi, Jim. You're in. If you could turn your YouTube off, that would be great. We're getting a little bit of feedback.
Capacity for indoor.
How's that?
That works. So we're into the public comment section. YouTube is just slightly behind, the live session here. So if you wouldn't mind stating your name and address, you have 3 minutes to speak on the rezoning on Fisher Street.
Right now?
Yes, right now.
Jim Borowski, I'm President and CEO of Goodwill Industries, and I'm calling in support of 616 Fisher Street. My address is 107 North Lakeshore Drive.
Thank you for that. You have, if you'd like to use your 3 minutes to discuss why you're in support, you may use your time now.
Well, it's been there's been many studies going on right now concerning affordable housing. That's one of the issues going on in Marquette, but a bigger issue are the homeless and the disadvantaged. And 616 Fisher Street has been a solution for those folks that have had the inability due to mental illness or addiction. And it's about time that we provide some support and housing for those people.
All right. If you're complete, thank you for your comments, and we'll bring in the next individual to speak.
And been a solution for those folks that have had the inability due to mental illness.
Ms. West, if you can hear us, if you wouldn't mind turning your YouTube video down, we have a little bit of feedback. Oh, and you've been brought into the live meeting so you can give public testimony on the Fisher Street rezoning. If you can unmute yourself and please state your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes to speak to the issue. Ms. West, I think you've muted yourself. You've been brought into the live meeting so you can give public testimony on the Fisher Street rezoning. If you can unmute yourself and please state your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes to speak to the issue. And Ms. West, if you could also turn your YouTube video audio down, that would be super. You muted yourself.
I cannot get out of here.
All right, just give it while she works.
You've been brought into the live meeting so you can give public testimony.
Can't get off of here.
We can hear you, but we can also hear the YouTube behind you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Why don't you just pass on me? I don't live in Marquette anymore, so I'm not even sure I can testify. So I'm just listening to support, and I haven't figured out how to turn off YouTube. So why don't you just go on to the next person?
I think you've sorted it out. If you want to just state your name and address, you're welcome to give public testimony.
Geez. Okay. Well, so my name is Kayla West. I live in Kenosha, Wisconsin. It's 6022 10th Street. But I used to live in Marquette, and I've been involved in Room at the Inn and Superior Housing Solutions. And I've also want to give a shout out to Tina Bender. Worked with her in the past when she was living in Marquette. So I just want to also speak in support. I know both Nick and Ryan. I know that the Fisher House is doing a really good service. It's able to step in emergencies when there's no other place to step in. The residents there are really, I think when Tina Bender was there, it was pretty much Tina Bender all by her lonesome trying to do heroic work. And now with Superior Housing Solutions, there are quite a number of entities also involved, and I think it's very healthy. The location for what Superior Housing Solutions does is ideal, being where it is on that side of town, near the hospital, near other social services. So I'm done. Thank you all for considering.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate that. Do we have any other individuals?
Yep, I'm bringing Michelle Metz in.
Hi, Ms. Metz, can you hear us? It looks like you're connecting to audio.
Yep, can you hear me?
Hear you just fine. If you wouldn't mind.
And I turned off my YouTube, so we don't have the feedback.
Perfect. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and your address, and then after that, you will have 3 minutes to give testimony to the rezoning Fisher Street.
So my name is Michelle Metz. I live at 400 East College Avenue here in Marquette. I work with Superior Housing Solutions and am one of the community health workers that works with the guys that live at Fisher Street. And I wanted to speak in support of the rezoning because we have a really great home at Fisher Street right now for the men who live there and are able, as Nick stated, to offer a place to catch some of the overflow when the shelter has more guests than they can currently accommodate. And also many of the men who live there are not able to get housing in any of the other public housing facilities in Marquette. And so our house actually is really their last option. Many of them have been living there for a long time. It has a family atmosphere. We have a house manager who he cooks dinner for them, and we also give the guys opportunity to do service work in the community. And I think it's just it would be really unfortunate if we lost the house and there would be 13 people with nowhere to go, and we would lose it as a second support after the homeless shelter. So I'm hoping that you will take all that into consideration, as well as the fact that the house has been used for a very similar purpose for the last several decades, and vote to rezone so we can continue providing the service that we're providing in Marquette.
All right, thank you very much. We have another individual on the phone, 869-4912. If you could state your name and your address, you have 3 minutes to give testimony to the rezoning issue on Fisher Street.
Yes, my name is Rick Bissonette, and my wife Pat and I have lived at 601 Fisher, which is right across the street from 616 Fisher. We both oppose the rezoning because as it stands now, the house has to be run by people, from what I understand, that live in the house. The owners have to run the place, live in the house. The vendors, who I think currently own the house still, I'm not sure, haven't lived there for about 1.5 years. But now, from what I understand, they want to have an outside firm hire managers to take care of the place versus having the owners live there. So I just want to oppose that for a lot of reasons. We've lived across the street for a long time, and we've had even though my family, I raised my granddaughter and my kids and everybody there, 2 granddaughters. We've had endless problems with the people across the street. A lot of these are documented with the city police. Everything from public urination, exposure, stalking by a criminal sex offender of my daughter years ago, of somebody that I can't tell if they lived there or just associated with those people and were always there. Recently, we had the police over because one of the tenants at the house kept harassing my daughter and running up to the car when my granddaughter and her were getting out of the car and asking if he can help. And my daughter actually had to lock the windows and called us, and then we called the police. We've had damaged property, stuff stolen out of our garage, tools. Came home one day and one of them was urinating against the side of my garage. We've had things thrown at our house. We spent $400 or $500 worth of flowers from Menards to come home from going out to eat and have all the flowers all cut up. We've had all these things, called the police. So I feel, and so does my wife, that if an owner lives there, which currently the vendors don't live there, I don't know who really runs the place because we keep to ourselves. But I feel that if an owner that lives in the house runs it, they have more control over what goes on there versus an endless turnover of different managers run by an outside firm. I feel that the problems that we encounter would only become worse under that scenario. And I personally would rather have the house go to a family or an individual than to have it be a group home. But that's not what's being discussed, and I understand that. But I currently think that if the way it is now, if the Benders were still living across the street, which they haven't for 1.5 years, I feel we would have better communication as to make a lot of this stuff stop. We have endless streams of cop cars and ambulances and fire trucks and things bi-weekly or weekly or at least monthly, always over at the house. So it's kind of an interruption. I've trained or asked my kids, my grandkids, to not speak to the people across the street. I can't let my grandkids go out there and play by themselves. I have to be out there with them, or my daughter or somebody has to be. And I just don't feel that it would be better for me or the neighborhood or for the city to have an outside influence with an endless turnover of managers. That's why I oppose the rezoning.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Andrew, do we have anybody else in the waiting room?
Yeah, Rick, I have a question. I see that there is another thing that says Rick Bissonette in the waiting room. Is that somebody else in your family or?
Oh, no. Nope, that is me. I logged on the Zoom app and on the phone.
Oh, okay.
And was in endless silence until about 10 minutes ago or 15 minutes ago when on hold music came on. I could not get YouTube to track enough to follow what was going on. So I've just been waiting on hold till called. So
Okay.
that is me on the Zoom app.
All right, so I'm just gonna put you in the waiting room then and then not bring you in again.
Okay, thank you. I'm probably going to leave the meeting after this. I've got a 2-hour ride home. So
Thanks. All right, and then do we have somebody else?
Hi, we have 942-7911. If you wouldn't mind stating your name, your address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak on the rezoning issue at Fisher Street.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
You're just fine, thank you.
Okay, my name is Kim Frost, 392 Town Hall Road in Scandia, Michigan. I work in Marquette for Lutheran Social Services, and I have worked with the homeless population for about 15 years now, and worked with the Bender House when it was Bender's, and since then as it's transitioned into Fisher Street House. And like so many of the people have attested to, that home provides such an essential service to some of the most marginalized citizens that we have in our community. They are people who are incredibly vulnerable to homelessness. And without the home operating as it is, for that population of people, you will have 13 plus people who will be homeless and, as Michelle stated, would not be able to move into the traditional housing programs that we normally think of. They don't meet the criteria. They would not be eligible. So it's essential that we maintain that home and also maintain the level of support and all that come with Superior Housing Solutions and all that it provides. So I am in great support of the approval of the rezoning and hope that we as a community recognize the essential role that programs like this play, like I said, in housing our most vulnerable citizens. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was the last of it, of the people in the waiting room that haven't already spoken.
All right. So with that, I think we can move into commission discussion here, and if at this point we can also talk to the applicant if we have questions for the applicant. Do we need a motion to suspend the rules on this so we can discuss conversationally?
Motion to suspend the rules.
Motion to suspend the rules and support by Aaron. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Sarah, if you'd like to start off, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah, I just had a question, probably for Mr. Redmond. I heard a couple of the folks who were just providing some testimony mention that the clients or the people who live at the Fisher Street house don't have other options because they don't qualify for other, maybe, subsidized housing. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? Just to kind of educate us a little bit, because I don't know that much. I know we have a significant homeless population and an affordable housing crisis in Marquette, but I don't really know much about the details of the population.
Yeah, what they mean by there's no other options is that a lot of the time, a lot of these chronically homeless folks that we support in the Fisher Street location, they don't have rental history. They have maybe felonies on their background that prohibits them from getting in public housing. They have a lack of ability to maintain traditional housing.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Andrus, do you have anything to add?
I was just wondering, I know one of the conditions of rezoning is to have somebody actually living at the home, and I've just been wondering I know you have vendors coming in and out, but do you actually have someone operating that's living there?
Yes, sir. During the day, it is supported with community health workers and or a recovery coach who's there during business hours. And typically our house manager is there throughout the day, but he is there from evening to morning every day.
So is there a gap when the residents are by themselves?
No gap. There's 24 coverage there at all times.
Okay.
Commissioner Dunn, would you like to add anything?
I don't even know. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not even sure where to start. And I guess I've got a lot of questions for staff as to how this would work. Yeah, give me a minute.
Sure thing. So I think, from my perspective, there's a couple things that, I have a little bit of interest in discussing. One of them is in the application, you cross off, when we're looking at rezoning this to mixed use, you crossed off several items on the permitted principal uses, for the property to, make this a conditional rezoning. I think I would like to see that also on the special land uses. So if this were to transfer to another hand here, transfer again, in the future to another owner, those special land uses that are also out there would then also be up for consideration at some future need. And so I think there's several of those special land uses that should be crossed off here that kind of come more in line with also what your permitted uses of that property are to that, and where some of those likely don't fit anymore. And so with the rezoning that would potentially run with the land, just to make sure that those special land uses don't kind of follow through as well, if that makes sense. And question for staff, is that something, everything being equal, is that something we need to walk through right now, Dave, as far as which ones we would recommend? Sorry, you're on mute, Dave.
I would recommend walking through that right now because it's not an extensive list.
Yep. And so I know there's a variety of other questions that are associated with it, but this was my first thought. And if the rest of the commission wants to entertain that, let's walk through that one at a time. Would that be all right with you guys?
Yes.
Okay. So there's certain ones that come to mind that make it easy that we would remove, but let's just go straight down from the top. Non-single family residential lots as an accessory use. And Dave, you might have to chime in here on that. This one here is accessory use for a non-single family residential lot. Is that appropriate? Go ahead.
It'd be an accessory use to a commercial use.
Okay, so and so this is essentially becoming if we do this will become a commercial, kind of an official commercial venture. I would believe, because I think this is kind of falling under a little bit of that community healthcare services, with this. So that one likely stays. Adult foster care, you already have that one crossed off. I think that one would go away. I think bar would go away. Bed and breakfast inn, childcare, daycare, group home. You have those crossed off. I think those go away. And then, yeah, I guess you tell me, applicant, whether or not, domestic violence abuse shelter, would be, you'd be interested in having something like that remain on the list. I'd be interested to hear from you on that. And feel free to stop me at any time. Ryan, maybe you're on mute?
Yeah, I'm listening. I would say domestic violence abuse shelter. We've helped people. We've helped male individuals who are have been in a domestic violence situation. That's not what our primary use would be.
Mhm. No, understand. And we're just thinking about future uses that, we just want to make sure that, special land uses also line up with kind of the permitted uses, which you're suggesting. And so if that one stays, and then I think we go down, dwelling unit, accessory unit goes away. Intentional community, maybe that stays because it sounds like this is here. Foster family group home, that may be, in that same vein. I think fraternity house likely goes away. Homeless shelter, I know it's not exactly homeless shelter, but it provides some of those terms. Commission, is that something that commissioners, would that potentially stay?
I would say that it does not fall in that category, but that's just me.
Okay. So it's not a homeless shelter, so maybe that also goes away. Not a hospital, goes away. Hospital hospitality house, I don't think that's in there. Hotel or motel, light manufacturing, marijuana safety compliance facility, nursing home, convalescence home, extended care facility, assisted living likely goes away. Outdoor entertainment, community events, food and beverage service, recreational use. And then I guess the only one left on this list here is really rooming house, as that was its original intention. If that one stays on the list, but I think it's a relatively very few in the special land uses that I think should stay in it. And I guess fellow commissioners, tell me if I'm off base here. Commissioner Andres, put you on the spot.
I don't think you're off base.
Okay.
So I think that's making sense to narrow it down as much as we can. I'm not familiar with what the specifics of a rooming house is. I think sometimes this type of use would also be called a halfway house, but I don't know that we even have that in our land use.
Right.
Yeah, and that would be probably the closest thing to this in any other zoning district where the halfway houses are only allowed in multifamily residential districts and some of the waterfront form-based area. But the rooming house allows, it's much different than the way this particular facility was operated. And that's one reason is a legal non-conforming rooming house, because the current definition of a rooming house is a dwelling occupied where rooms in excess of those used by the immediate family unit can be leased to persons outside of the family with no attempt to provide cooking or kitchen facilities, because that gets to be a bed and breakfast. And in that case, the rooming house now, the model is in a single or two family home, you can rent up to 3 rooms to outside persons.
Right. So. And again, this is just for, I know this is not what they're applying for. However, just narrowing it down, if there is going to be a condition of rezoning, narrow it down as far as you can, would be one of the things that I'd be after.
So on your list, you have domestic violence abuse shelter, intentional community, foster family group home, and rooming house, if I got that correct.
Yep.
It sounds like a reasonable list for special uses.
Would the applicant be okay with those lists, this list being changed to having those crossed off on the special land uses, or only including those 4 items? Mr. Redmond?
I,
Again, Dave could say it. Dave could say that out loud. Again, one more time. I think it was rooming house. Rooming house. We had
Foster
domestic,
family
yep,
group home,
foster family group home,
domestic
violence,
violence, the domestic violence abuse shelter, and intentional community.
Yep.
we would be okay with that, sir.
All right. So I think that was the number. One of the first things that I thought about is just making sure we have that. I do have one other question for you as far as permitted principal uses. So now this will certainly change. A rezoning will certainly come with changes, that you potentially have to make, and then within these permitted principal uses, I guess this is kind of health services, or it's a little bit of a combination of health services versus, as well as, I guess not exactly multifamily. Of those permitted uses, where do you see yourself falling?
The permitted uses that Mr. Sensen just said.
Oh, so those are the land use. Andrea, if you wouldn't mind bringing up, the application one more time so you can see the items that you've crossed off. You left up a variety of dwelling and then health services, and then home office and these other related uses. And so I think you kind of fall into a number of categories as far as health services and then dwelling services. But does that present you with any additional hurdles that you have to get over? And kind of where do you see this business kind of falling under?
Hey, Michael, I don't mean to interrupt, but could you maybe clarify for Mr. Redmond? Because people who aren't enmeshed in zoning and planning might not be like really familiar with like the difference between a special land use, and maybe Mr. Redmond does, but if I was coming to this process and it wasn't like,
I apologize.
I might not know like
what's
the special land use permit and how's that different than permitted. So maybe could you just like give a little explanation?
Sure. So I apologize. Thanks, Sarah. So kind of looking at this process, you are applying for, a permitted principal use for this property, for this business, as a change from where the property has stood previously. In the application, you have crossed off several items, with your organization, with your attorney, crossed off several items for which, you do not wish to operate this facility as, so you have, this facility could operate under any of these items that are not crossed off of. This is going to be that principal use. What I'm talking about with special land uses is that in the future, if this property were to ever change hands again, as it stands right now, if you own this for 5 years, decide you wanted to sell it to another party could come in and suggest that they wanted to open a bar, a bed and breakfast, so on and so forth down that line, and we want to limit the scope as necessary in changing out of the original variance that is there when we do this rezoning process. So the issue that I just went through with talking about trying to limit the special land uses that are on this here really speak to future uses that are beyond you, beyond your group, likely here, but it's just really to narrow the use of this property down to, the what you intend to use it for, because it is a conditional, rezoning, for mixed use. And, and if your attorney wants to speak to this, as well, then that's perfectly fine. And again, from what it seemed, I was just asking, saying if this falls under health services, for example, does that change, the structure? Does that change any of the permitting that you have to go through, internally as a with pathways or so on? Is there additional permitting that needs to go into compliance to operate a kind of an official house, official kind of halfway, or I guess it's not a halfway house, an official service center like you're suggesting here. Because previously, like I said, you were operating under a variance, but by changing zoning, does that provide, do you have to go through any other compliance issues like with pathways, mental health that may not previously have been on there by changing zoning? Does that make sense, commissioners? What I'm trying to ask? And if it doesn't, maybe somebody can help clarify what I'm saying.
I think it makes sense. Health services seems to me the most appropriate primary use category for this organization. Although, as you pointed out, it's providing a place to live. So some of the dwelling categories, there's some overlap. It's not a neat and tidy situation necessarily. That's why we kept all of the dwelling categories, most of them anyway, open. As far as the special land uses, I don't anticipate this group seeking a special land use permit for what they are currently doing or want to do. And so, you could see this home at some point, maybe if it gets resold 10 years down the road. Who knows what somebody would want to do with it, but certainly Superior Housing Solutions has no problem with limiting the special uses that are allowed under this rezoning to leave just the four categories that Mr. Census listed off. I don't think that's it's certainly no conflict with the use that is anticipated in the near to mid to long-term future. And as far as additional licensing, Mr. Redmond understands that he may need to talk with the building code folks and things like that. I don't think that this will trigger necessarily any state licensing needs for the uses that they're currently utilizing, but certainly he is aware of different uses that require state licensing and would obtain those licenses if they become a requirement of what the house is doing. I mean, we're not talking about becoming a licensed adult foster facility in the way that's defined, by DHS, for example, at this point.
All right, understand. I'm glad you followed what I was asking. I appreciate the comments there. Commissioner Dunn.
Yes. My primary question right now, I guess, is up for discussion among the commissioners, but I'm trying to understand how or whether this is a appropriate use of the conditional zoning or conditional rezoning. And I still haven't come to form an opinion, and it's just my own lack of knowledge in what constitutes an appropriate use of the conditional rezoning and what does not. And it's hard for me to come to a decision without doing some more studying on this. I wish I had an opinion or had more to say on it, but I'm just not educated enough on it.
Sure. Dave, I don't know if you'd like to just weigh in really quickly, because conditional rezoning is certainly has its own set of rules, under statute, and it does not necessarily fall under the same rules as spot zoning and otherwise. So this is, a special process that, we have used in the past as well. If you recall, with our conditional rezoning that we did over on US 41 in South Marquette for the old, remind me of the building.
The Union Grill.
And previously. So we have gone through this previously, as far as that goes. But if Dave wants to make a comment, on that,
sure,
please do so.
Sure. I just go back though first a little bit to the explanation that you were making about the various land uses in the list that was provided by the applicant that they are willing to go forward with. It just, again, another level of explanation is that, rezoning runs with the land, and that's why it's important for the Planning Commission to establish right now and make a recommendation on those uses, because nobody knows what's the future is going to hold, and this property could change hands in 3 years, and that rezoning will run with the land. So the future owner, if that future owner wants to operate something on that list, that's fine. If they don't, then they're going to have issues to contend with to see if they can go back for another rezoning, because you're setting that up for long-term decades of this is the specified uses for this land, unless the city approves another rezoning. And honestly, the city approves very few rezonings. It's not very often that the city deals with rezoning cases. And the conditional rezoning is a new tool for the city of Marquette. It's been around. Other communities have had it for a bit longer, but the city just adopted this process a few years ago when the Land Development Code was adopted in 2019. And this is a very different process, being that the applicant is suggesting what they are looking for and will accept in terms of, it's basically a trade-off. You're willing to select certain uses that are in that zoning district that you want to adopt for this property, but not all of them. And the city is either going to make a recommendation on that. They're not going to negotiate that with the applicant. This process is somewhat of a negotiation, but whatever is decided here on that list of uses is going to be what goes forward to the city commission. And so the spot zoning that normally is a big issue with looking at whether rezoning should be approved or not, that doesn't apply to a conditional rezoning, because this is by definition a spot zone. This is creating a zoning district that doesn't necessarily fit the area, or some uses of a zoning district that doesn't fit the character of the area. And in this case, a bar would not. So just adopting the mixed use district here would not fit this zoning district. Looking back at those uses now, I think, well, why wouldn't a bed and breakfast be an acceptable special use for that list? I mean, there may be a couple other things, but this is a long-term process you're talking about. It's not just for Superior Housing Solutions necessarily.
Thanks, Dave.
Could I chime in a question there?
Yeah, we'll have Commissioner Dunn just follow up there, and then we'll go to Commissioner Andreas.
So, Dave, can you explain to me, one of my concerns is how this conditional rezoning sort of short circuits the community input. Like, I look at the community input as the master plan, and what we're doing is going to change what was indicated in that master plan. And I guess I'm looking at, well, it's a public hearing, so I guess people can contribute that way. But I'm just wondering if there's any issues there, or any logic behind, when that's a good thing to do or not. Because in this case, we're not correcting an error, we're not correcting an oversight in the master plan. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of, I understand it's a historic use, but
that's a very good question. It's very perceptive. And I know you I'm not even sure you were living in Marquette when the master plan was overhauled in 2015. It was overhauled for a few years. 2015 it was adopted. The last update was in 2018, but I'm not sure if it was in the 2015 or the 2018 update, but conditional rezoning was a recommendation of the zoning portion of the community master plan to create a condition. So that's why it was adopted into the land development code. That came from as a recommendation from the community master plan, because it's a very useful tool in some circumstances. We don't want it to become an end around for, the standard zoning processes, but there are some exceptions. We all know there's just too many laws where it's too cookie cutter. Things don't fit. And that's why conditional rezoning for some properties might be the perfect tool. And in this case, it's probably the only tool that would accomplish this request.
We've got Commissioner Andres first, and then we'll have Commissioner Middlefield.
I think Dave answered my question.
Commissioner Middlefield.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to kind of address Commissioner Dunn's comment about why are we getting into the weeds with narrowing the special land use permit for this case. But I think if we go back to the questions that we need to ask ourselves with the conditional rezoning, the first thing is, it's like, this is where we get to be pragmatic and we really look into the nuances of this particular piece of property and think like, is this an appropriate location for this zone? But, we see, like, Dave was saying, maybe not a bar, but it certainly seems like it has been operating as, has been mentioned for decades, and as this rooming house, and is serving this important function for our community now. So I think I'm kind of in favor of the conditional rezoning, and because we know we've all been involved in conversations about the importance of affordable housing and, supporting our homeless members of our community. So I think I would be in favor of going this route. I mean, I really understand the neighbors' concerns, and I can imagine how stressful like some of those encounters must be. But I thinking like as the planning commission for the community as a whole, and thinking about the goals of the master plan and how it fits into the land development code, I think we have an opportunity to try to figure this out. And where Commissioner Larson started to help us go down that road a little bit about like, okay, well, let's say we do make this a mixed use zone. Well, here we have an opportunity to say, well, which of those mixed uses might be appropriate moving forward. So I think we're heading in that direction. It is something that takes some thought, though, obviously. So.
And I would just like to point out here as well, we are making a recommendation to the city commission. So, we're making a recommendation for, either, the conditional zoning, for or against it. And whatever way we go, we are not the final decision, on this. It will go to the city commission. And so just keep in mind, when we do make a recommendation, there's a variety of things that, may need to go into that recommendation as far as, why it is being made. Sarah, if you wouldn't mind, at this time, I guess I would just like, Mr. Ribbon or Ms. Bender to just, address the community concern, that we heard from tonight, whether or not, that was happening, or, what safeguards can you put into place or are in place that can help mitigate some of those scenarios that are happening. And we can appreciate the concern, that's there. And, we can also appreciate the need for facilities like this, in the community. And, this is an opportunity for you to chat about that, or just, have a response.
I will respond to that, to their comments. Almost everything that they said happened like when Evelyn Bender and Fred Bender were still alive. So those are things that happened way, way in the past. Those people are no longer there, have not been allowed there for 15, 20 years.
Thank you. And you know, Mr. Redmond, if you wouldn't mind, you know, mentioning some of the kind of safeguards that you may have in place, you know, or what are the situations and how you may deal with those issues moving forward.
Yes, sir. Moving forward, we are implementing a nice patio area in the backyard, which will be the congregation area where they tend to hang out in the back. Previously, they were kind of allowed to smoke out front, but we're making the area in the backyard to where they can be. As far as the ambulances being there and the police, I would say a great deal, and we can look at the history of the records, but most of the time it's medical. We have people that with pancreatic issues, we have people with severe mental illness in the house. And there are some times where we will call the ambulance for healthcare purposes. We have a security system put in place to cut down on other people coming there. We do not allow visitors that do not reside in the residence any longer. So that will cut down on traffic in the area. And we have community health workers and recovery coaches in there really working on the harmonization of the house daily.
Thank you for that. So commissioners, fellow commissioners, I don't know if you have any other discussion or questions, you know, for the applicant here. Go ahead, Mr. Commissioner Dunn.
I'm sorry, I do not have a question for the applicant, but another one for commissioners and staff.
Yep, I was just going to kind of move that. So if we can move out of the kind of the question phase and into just a little bit of our internal, you know, our discussion, you know, or continuing discussion to help move this towards, you know, a little bit of resolution one way or the other. I think that's where we'd like to be headed.
I do have one other question.
All right, let's go ahead.
And I put it in chat, but I haven't gotten anything back from anybody. But in regards to the special use permits, would it be better to leave all of the items there, minus the bar, of course, with nothing crossed off, so that it, you know, if something were ever to happen where Superior Housing Solutions had to dissolve or moved elsewhere, something of that nature, that it could become a home daycare with somebody living in there, or it could be the bed and breakfast. Is it better just to leave all those things in there or not?
And I think that's something for us. I think that's, you know, when we make a recommendation, that's one thing that we'll have to kind of have a final discussion on amongst the commissioners here. So appreciate you bringing that up and pointing that out. I was not looking at the chat box. Thanks. All right. Commissioner Dunn, if we don't have any other questions for the applicant, let's move into, if we have discussion amongst ourselves and for staff, let's see what we can make happen.
So one of the questions that I keep coming back to is where this ongoing use fits in and what the proper definition is for this particular use. I mean, does it fit under health services, or does it fit under a rooming house? And I'm not sure on that. But then I'm also wondering whether that even needs to be our focus, or do we just focus on, is this the appropriate location for mixed use with the limited amount of uses that we have presented here? And is it appropriate location for that zoning, and not worry about what use that they may define the historical use as. So I'm looking for input on that. And do I just limit to specifically the criteria that we've got listed here, or do I need to try and figure out whether this is going to achieve the applicant's goal?
Dave?
Well, I think because this is a very specific use that's been stated, it's been defined to some extent, that it makes sense for you to clearly understand that the use is going to meet one of those in the list of uses, one of those land uses. And health services, again, I'll repeat the definition: as establishment engaged in providing diagnostic services, including general medical services, medical labs, outpatient care facilities, and the definition may include an outpatient or inpatient/outpatient mental health or substance abuse treatment facility. That's probably as close as you're going to get in our zoning in the land development code for a definition. And just for comparison, this might have been called a halfway house in certain other conditions. That is defined as a house licensed by a state agency for continued care, treatment, and counseling of individuals who successfully completed institutional treatment and who would benefit from a controlled atmosphere in a residential setting.
Dave, Commissioner Middelfeld.
Oh, I didn't have my hand up, but I think we should. I was just going back to the 4 that we had talked about with the special land use permit. What were those? Those were the domestic violence abuse shelter, the dwelling, the 2 different dwelling uses, correct? And then
intentional
rooming house?
communities,
What was
family
that,
group
Dave?
home, foster family group home, and rooming house.
Okay. I mean, I think I'm okay with that if that seems like that aligns with the functions of this particular, this particular situation, if it meets the bill,
Okay, Commissioner Andrews.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this sounds like an awful lot of it spot zoning. And spot zoning seems to be illegal if I'm not mistaken. So
I think we so this is a separate piece, because when you do a conditional rezone, it's not across the board everything within the permitted and special land use piece, and so it falls out of spot zoning. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, is that by limiting the number of permitted uses that are in there, we fall into a conditional zoning situation, which moves away from the spot zoning issues that are there. So we're saying that there's a limited use. It's not across the board use for this multi-use. Right now, we're talking about limiting it to these specific pieces, which I believe brings us out of any spot zoning situation, that may be there.
Right. So it's almost a limited review. Spot zoning isn't completely out of the equation, but you're kind of taking a modified version of it into account, and basically making a judgment of what is being proposed. Does it meet the character of the area, and not looking at those other criteria in the spot zoning list of criteria.
Okay.
But I think if I might add to Ms. Bender's point, I think it does bear looking at the possibility of this property being used differently in just a few years. If there's no reason not to look at things like the daycare or bed and breakfast, but the exercise that you went through probably did eliminate most of the things that would not fit the character of the residential area.
I think I would be, revisiting after hearing that. I think I'd be open to, with Sarah's explanation saying, hey, this is our chance to look at what's, appropriate here in the future. And again, special land uses, if for some reason 5 years from now it changes hands, they would still have to come before us, with special land use. So you have a second opportunity to talk about, whether it would be appropriate for a bed breakfast. The community would have a second opportunity to chime in to say if that would be appropriate or not, there as well. But I do think potentially adding in, those that which might be compatible, like a bed and breakfast or child daycare, maybe that would be, a fine expansion, but still limiting it, to, rule out bar and school and other, vehicle repair, things along those lines. Commissioner Dunn.
Along that same line, I'm wondering if it wouldn't make sense to include most, if not all, of the uses that would be in the medium density residential, since that's what we're moving away from. I mean, why? And that's what most of the surrounding properties are. Wouldn't we want to include most of those uses?
Those are all still allowed. They're all still allowed in addition to those uses identified in the mixed use.
Don't we allow duplex in MDR?
Yes.
Oh, there's some overlap. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So like, just using that as an example, I don't know why we would exclude duplex when that's already. Right. I understand we need to make it, fairly specific, but at the same time, I don't want to exclude a lot of the things that are in the current zoning and in the adjacent property zoning. We want to keep it as compatible as we can, I would think.
Understood. And maybe in whoever's making that recommendation, you can say, I don't know if you can say I don't know if you can add that, or you can say including the current, current zoning what's allowed in current zoning in, the residential zone.
That'd be fine. So,
because we're making a recommendation to the city commission on this, if we've gone through it, if there's any final discussion amongst us, but otherwise I would entertain a motion from somebody, and if we need some additional help on that list again, we can make that happen. But I would certainly entertain a motion one way or the other. And if we don't want to make a motion, if there's issues unresolved, we can still talk about that as well.
So one of my unresolved issues is the fact that a lot of the oversight and management in the past has been because it was owner occupied, and it was, someone that lived there and cared about the neighborhood, and I'm concerned about. I understand that there will be someone on staff there 24/7, but that's still different than having it be owner occupied. So I'm struggling with number 10 and number 12 as far as the standards. And so that's sort of what I'm thinking about for number 10, but then number 12, I don't know that it's incompatible, but it seems to me that a lot of the adjacent zones are residential, and this is, I see there is one mixed use parcel kind of back and behind there, but the effects are going to be felt by all of the residences, and I'm sure they already are. Obviously this is an ongoing situation, so I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. I'm still a little bit concerned with standard number 12 there.
Understood. Do we want to, either Aaron or Sarah, do you have any comments?
I agree with
on
Mike. I'm concerned about 12.
Can we bring up For just clarity's sake, Andrew, would you mind bringing up the zoning, the zoning map so we can look at just both all sides of the property?
Can I suggest something, Michael, while you guys are?
Yeah, please
waiting for
do.
that? I don't know if you want to, if capacity is an issue that you want to discuss, but that could be related to some of the concerns you have.
That's definitely one of the things I'm thinking about.
You want to speak more to that, Commissioner Dunn?
Yeah, so as it stands right now, do we know what the total capacity is? Because I saw several different things, something from the fire department, and I saw a bunch of different numbers in different places, and so I'm wondering what the occupancy will be going forward.
Let's ask the applicant. Mr. Redmond?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but we went for 16. Wasn't that our ask in the application? Yeah.
Right, and that's what the variance allowed, I believe. And so that's why we stuck with the number of 16.
One follow-up question to that. Have you remained at 16 individuals?
It's fluctuated, but from 13 to 16, yes.
Thank you.
The variance in 1992 allowed up to 12 renters.
And right, and then 4 family members,
The
right?
family living, and I think on separate floors, right?
Okay. And now my understanding is that the ground floor which used to be allocated for family use is now being used for residents, I think. Ryan, you'll have to clarify that, but that's my basic understanding, that with a total of 16, it's utilizing the upper floor and the ground floor, right?
Yeah, and the live-in manager that's there all the time also stays on that floor as well.
And I guess to that, well, I guess one comment there is that it does look like there was some information from the Market Fire Department, the fire marshal, stating that it is only the second floor that is allowed for residents. Am I reading that correctly, Dave?
I believe so, if that's in the memo.
Yep. So it says the second floor of your rooming house is the approved area for overnight capacity. You can house additional clients on the second floor as long as you have available beds and your client capacity is or at below the maximum state capacity of 16. So as the memo from the fire marshal states, is that it's only on the second floor that folks are allowed to be for overnight capacity.
In terms of the renters or whatever you have there, is it client based, or I'm just having a question of why are these ads on the internet for rooms and this is how much you can get per room and all this stuff?
I'm not really sure of the question. We don't run ads for this house. This is all referrals.
There was ads on, I think, Dave, you showed Facebook or something? Or maybe not Facebook. Let me pull up the information again.
Yes, I think he's referencing an ad that seemed to be on a classified on online
There we
classified
go.
site.
We've never ran any classifieds.
Okay.
But as far as what rent goes, it's rent, but we also offer housing first. It's an initiative for the homeless and for people that are in between maybe an SSI or SSDI payment or in the application process, we allow them to live with us and we support them. We help them through the process to obtain some type of income. A lot of our clients have mental illness with no past criminal history. It's a real mix of people and program participants, as we call them.
I'd like to add a couple things if I could. One of the people that lives there, it has been there for at least 20, 25 years, maybe. Another has been there nearly 20. I mean, and they're still there even after we've left, correct, Ryan? I mean, so some of them are very, very long-term, some of them are not. But also the land backs up to the hospital on the backside, and it on the other side is Right Electric. And then the city owns the 2 lots on the corner where they bulldozed the houses down for the new construction when the hospital was going in and the roundabout was built. So there's not really like there's not other houses that are backing right up to it.
Thank you for that clarification. So I don't know, Commissioner Dunn, if you have other concerns, as far as number 10 goes. Again, if we are looking at rezoning, at a potential rezoning to continue to allow this to happen, this is, from my point of view, likely the most appropriate zoning that we have on our list, if we're going to, consider that this has been there for this long, and with the character of the neighborhood, if it's been there, for this long, I feel like it's kind of part of that. So as far as number 10 goes, I certainly, understand your concern about, the number 12, number 12 here, and I think the conditional rezoning, allowing it, within that, setting, hey, we also, with multi-use, we also want to confer all the rights, as to medium density residential, into that site as well. That, it allows, future use, of that site, if this organization, were to sell or something were to happen, that would potentially allow it to move on to, medium density residential, or to a limited number of multi-use, pieces there, especially sharing the neighboring with, Red Electric, that's right next to it, and the hospital. I don't know that it's incompatible, but I certainly think this may be the most appropriate zoning that we have. And again, I do think that, the City Commission will certainly be hearing this, again, and, we'll have the opportunity, and the public will also have the opportunity to restate, some of their concerns at that point in time. So if this does serve as kind of this first volley of sorts, the commission, at that commission meeting, public will be able to kind of state their concerns, one more time after looking at the public record through this particular meeting. Commissioner Dunn.
That does help me. I'm still thinking on number 10, how I don't know all of the uses that are allowed, the permitted uses for general commercial. But it seems like without the owner being there, this is more of a commercial use. And I understand that there is some commercial uses, but that's what I was thinking about specifically for number 10, is whether GC would be a more appropriate zone district. It certainly wouldn't be by compatibility with the surroundings, but I'm wondering if that would be a more appropriate zone for this particular use.
And fair enough. I appreciate that, and I do think that giving the flexibility of the multi-use zoning, I think the multi-use, in my opinion, is a better zoning that allows for more flexible future use, of that site. That does allow for single family or otherwise, but if we turned it to commercial, I think you have a greater issue in reverting it back into the residential property. That's certainly kind of my thoughts there. Dave, and just one, if you want to respond to me, Dave, then that's fine. Otherwise, Sarah had hers first here.
Oh, I was gonna go attempt to make a motion, but Dave can talk, and
all right.
I think I've got a motion that we can pass or fail, or got an idea.
So an important point on that topic is that because there are 3 planning commissioners absent tonight, a vote that is not unanimous is not a vote for recommending this, because you have to have at least a majority of the seated members of the planning commission voting in favor of something for it to be considered passing. So you have 7 members at present, and so you need at least 4 to have a vote that is passing. So you have to have a unanimous vote. The other thing I was going to bring up was, I think part of the concerns maybe that are unexpressed here that Commissioner Dunn is concerned with, and I'm certain that it's not just Commissioner Dunn, but is that, a use like this where you have 16 unrelated adults maybe in a house that's in a residential district, is that it doesn't function like another house in the district. It's not typical for that area, and so you're going to have a different look. It's going to feel different. It's going to look different. So what can you do to create? I think one of the questions probably in the back of your mind is, what can you do to create this situation where it doesn't look and feel different, feel out of place? Maybe it looks a little different, but maybe it blends in better and doesn't have those nuisance issues that might occur with, we have a lot of duplexes in the city where you have 4 college students in each unit, and that's 8 on a small lot. This is maybe a little bigger than the average lot, but and those uses tend to be the ones where you have the most police visits, and it's just, you put a lot of people and in those cases a lot of cars on a small lot, and especially people with a lot of energy, they tend to create more problems than a typical family would. So I'm just thinking about this property. I don't see in the photos, I can't tell if there's a fence all the way around the property. I can see a little bit that there's a fence along the east side. A fence around the backyard is one thing, because it does butt up to 2 other residential properties that are occupied. The other thing I was thinking, Mr. Redmond talked about building the patio in the backyard. Maybe if the front yard is sort of off limits to kind of hanging out, maybe that helps. I'm just kind of riffing, but I think that's, the character of the house in the area is really an issue that's probably in the back of people's minds a little bit.
Commissioner Dunn?
That would address my concerns perfectly if we could somehow include a condition for a fence, and especially for some sort of ongoing rule or requirement that the socializing or outdoor activities are confined to the backyard. I went by the site visit today, and there's a couple of guys hanging out front, and it's which is totally fine. But when you've got 3 guys out front smoking, it's not your typical residential neighborhood. It feels more commercial. So yeah, for whatever that's worth, if we could work that in as a condition, I'd be happy.
Commissioner Middlefeld?
This is a question for staff. Can we specify where people can hang out on property? That I like where you're going with that, but it seems like I don't remember us ever like making rules about what people can, that kind of like where they can socialize. Can we do that, Dave?
Planning Commission can recommend conditions on any approvals. Pretty much, you're allowed to recommend, in this case, you're recommending, for the special land use permit, you could require it.
We have no issues with any of that, and it's the direction that we were going. Once that patio was completed, it was going to be mandated. That was the area to socialize in outside. We have no issue with that. We plan on fixing. The fence needs mending in the back, but it's a 6-foot high fence, and we will definitely repair the fence and make sure that that is in place.
All right, thank you. And I do think, as far as the number of peoples are concerned, I think falling, to the making sure, just to reiterate, the fire marshal's, memo in there, with, limiting, the capacity of 16, and then, where they are labeling the floors and, where, sleeping quarters, are in there. That was included in staff, so I think we probably want to include that as well. I guess the only other question there is, do we want to think about, do we want to think about, the way it was originally set up, if it's 16 or if it's 12 plus four related persons, and maybe it hasn't been operated like that, for a while, but that would change the nature of it as well. But right now, I think, with the fire marshal's suggestion of 16 and then stating kind of where housing, overnight stays, maybe that is perfectly fine.
My understanding from the fire marshal when we lived there was that the first floor level had not ever been looked at because the family was living there. So therefore they never looked at it as a possibility of having anybody live there. So I'm sure it's time for I know we always did it somewhere between April and June where the fire marshal came out. And so I think that would be a quick, easy, okay, we're going to do it this way now. So.
Well, and to my point there, just kind of to the commissioners, is that as the information that we have from the fire marshal as it stands, states that it is on the second floor. And so, whether or not, following fire marshal guidelines, is kind of put into any recommendation that is being made.
Yes.
Just a suggestion, from my part, just so we have that there in person. So,
if I may add, though, this is a rezoning request, but if this were to be approved by the city commission, they would still have to go through the right permitting process for the health services. So not only would zoning, the county building department and the fire department would have to review it at that time too.
No, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Andrea. And I was merely referring to the fire marshal as the capacity of 16 only on the second floor, as it is currently stated. So, Commissioner Andreas, any final comments on? I say final comments. I'm just trying to move us to a conclusion here. Commissioner Dunn, any final comments? Commissioner Middlefelt, any final comments?
Well, maybe I should run by what I'm planning to make the motion, because it's going to be a long motion. So maybe we can make sure we're all good with it before I spit it all out, and then we won't have to repeat ourselves. But so I was planning to make the motion, but include a condition that allowed for, and Dave and Andrea, you're going to have to let me know if this is actually possible, that was going to allow for all uses that are allowed in the medium density residential district, plus anything permitted uses in the mixed use district, which is they've already identified under what the applicant submitted, plus any special land use permits going forward that included limited to the B&B, the B&B Inn, domestic violence shelter, the dwelling intentional community, foster family group home, and rooming house. Am I missing anything else on that list? Did we want to narrow it to those? Yep. Okay.
A
And then
daycare was
something.
mentioned.
Oh,
What's that,
daycare.
Dave?
Daycare was mentioned.
Oh, do we want daycare on there too? Sure.
On it. All right. So on this list, we're looking at which additional ones do you want me to, or you're saying to cross out?
I'm saying pretty much all of them except the ones I just mentioned, I think, right? Or do we want to go in a different direction? Oh, yeah. Oh, you did it, Andrea. Okay. Oh, gosh, I got to zoom it up. My eyeballs can't read that. Okay.
You know, the adult foster care small group home is not all that at odds with that district maybe either.
The foster family group home? Is that what you're talking about, Dave?
Yeah. Adult foster care. That might be in the MDR, I'm not sure.
The adult foster care family home is in the MDR.
Okay.
And then did we want to include or exclude child or daycare group home?
That's probably in the MDR too.
Yeah, include it.
Yeah, let's include that. And then what about foster family group home?
I think that gets included.
I think
That's
so.
that's in the MDR as a special use. As is childcare, daycare, adult foster care, small group home.
Okay.
But the other
Anything
ones
else?
you named were not in there. The domestic violence abuse shelter, intentional communities, and rooming houses.
Okay.
So
then
is it correct what I have up there then? The highlighted ones are the ones you're asking to strike.
Correct.
Yep.
Wait, what did we think about accessory use none? Oh yeah, no, we talked about that. I think, yes, keep that top one. That looks good to me. Anybody else comments on that?
I think you're on, Sarah.
Okay. Oh, but there was more. There was more than something
Oh
about
no, no, I
fencing.
think you're on point with this one. Yeah, I think we're
Okay.
I think we've got this.
Maintaining the fencing, 6-foot high fencing, which is that is there any side yard issue there, Andrea, with the fencing?
Let me pull it up.
In the rear, if you just say in the rear yard.
Yeah, in the rear yard, you're covered.
But do we want more fencing on any side yard? Because they did have residential side yards that abutted this, you know what I'm saying?
Well, it can only be in what we call the rear, behind the rear of the house.
Yeah.
And at this point, there isn't a home to the side if you're going to the east.
Oh, okay. I haven't done the drive-by. I just looked at the map. Okay, cool. And then a requirement that all socializing happens outside in the back on the rear patio and then meeting the capacity that the fire department will set. So those were the conditions. Are we okay with that? Anything else?
I think that's about right.
Okay.
Commissioner Andres or Commissioner Dunn, does that sound about right?
Good to go.
All right.
How did you state that last item, Ms. Middlefelt?
Oh, I was gonna say the capacity would be determined basically meeting the fire department's recommendations or requirements. So kind of let them work that out with whatever's safety.
Right.
Okay, so we're good. I can take a crack at this and.
Just a suggestion on the group gatherings or socializing. I would say confined to the backyard, but not specify the patio because we don't want to get that that involved.
Good
in the
point.
rear yard.
Okay, rear yard.
Rear yard.
All right, well, I think we would entertain a motion.
Okay, here we go. All right, after conducting a public hearing and review of the application and staff report analysis for 02-REZ-05 21, the Planning Commission finds the proposed rezoning with conditions is consistent with the community master plan and meets the requirements of the Land Development Code, section 54.1405, and hereby recommends that the City Commission approve 02-REZ 0521 with the following conditions: that the rezoning, proposed conditional rezoning is contingent on retaining any uses allowed in the medium density residential district. The permitted districts within the mixed use district will remain as permitted uses, and then going forward, any special land use permits in the mixed use district would be confined to accessory use dwelling, the bed and breakfast inn, the daycare facilities, domestic violence shelter, the dwelling intentional community, the dwelling, what was the other dwelling? Shoot, I missed that one. Anybody got that up? There was another dwelling. Okay. I can go back if you guys can pause and wait for me. I can find it in the.
Andrea, you can put it on the screen.
I'm
I
pulling
got
up
it.
here.
Dwelling accessory unit, right? Yeah, that's the one.
Dwelling intentional community.
And dwelling intentional community. Yep. Thank you. Foster family group home and rooming house. And another additional condition that the fencing around the property or fencing in the rear yard will be repaired, 6-foot fencing. And another condition is that all socializing by residents and managers happens in the rear yard, and that the resident capacity meets the requirements of the fire department. And I think that's it.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Support.
We have a motion by Commissioner Middlefeld. We have support by Commissioner Andres. I will do a roll call vote. Commissioner Andres.
Yes.
Commissioner Dunn.
Yes.
Commissioner Middlefeld.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So this is that we are recommending to the City Commission, and it will, I don't know what the date that will go before City Commission, but Andrea, if you know that date, that'd be great to.
That'll be Dave.
Or Dave, do we have a date in which it would go before the commission?
I believe the earliest it could go to the commission would be either the first or the second, or the first meeting or the second meeting of June. It's definitely one of those. I don't know if there's enough time between on the 31st of May. This would be on the commission's agenda to schedule a public hearing based on the Planning Commission's hearing. And they have to advertise that public hearing for a minimum of 15 days. So I'm assuming that then that puts this at the end of June. Because you just can't move it faster than they can schedule and appropriately notice a public hearing. And at their first meeting where they get this, they have to agree to schedule the public hearing. So there's extra delay in that. Unfortunately, if it was at all possible to get this squeaked into their agenda for the 10th, I can try to do that tomorrow. I just can't promise it. If I can squeak it onto their agenda for the 10th, and I mean it squeaked because they're supposed to be in already. All the items are supposed to be on the agenda by now for that meeting next Monday. But I can see if I can make that happen. I can't promise it though.
Okay, thanks, Dave. And thanks to the applicants for kind of sitting through this long discussion here. And Dave, and or Andrea will be in touch. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
We appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time. God bless.
All right.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 2 on the agenda, citizens wishing to address the commission on agenda items. Andrew, do we have anybody in the waiting room? We cannot hear you, Andrea.
Sorry, yeah, we have 3 people that had already spoken for the public hearing for this, but they're still in the waiting room.
Do we want to invite them in?
I'll bring them all in and then we
Bring
can
them all
ask.
in at the same time, please. Yeah. Hello, everyone. If you can hear me, we are just at the point where if there's anybody that wants to make any commission, address the commission on any agenda items. Probably not. All right. Going once, going twice. All right, moving on. Number 3, old business. I don't think we have any old business. Number 4, new business. We have no new business. Citizens wishing to address on non-agenda items. I think we probably are all right on that. Correspondence, reports, minutes, and other boards and committees. Do we have any discussion on that, Dave?
No, I didn't want to put anything else on this agenda
Thank you.
besides these 3 cases.
We do not have a work session, and then we'll move on to commission comments. Commissioner Andreas.
None.
Commissioner Middlefelt.
Yeah, my brain's kind of fried. I don't know. I'm past.
Commissioner Dunn.
I'm so sorry. I've always got questions.
Fine.
I'm on the motion that we just approved. Did this hit me right after? But did we include all of the mixed use permitted uses, or was it just limited to those that were not excluded?
I thought I said, oh shoot, I did in my practice run. I said it was limited to what they filed in their application. But did I say that in our?
I have to go back and listen to it.
That's what I meant.
So,
oh no, but
yeah,
I meant like.
So, right. So that's why I brought it up now, is so that as a recommendation to the city commission, we can clarify as to what we meant, because that's why I was stalling on voting. It was because I was thinking I wasn't sure if I heard it right or not. So
in my head, that's what I
know.
was saying, but it's possible I didn't say like the mixed use as presented, as the applicant submitted.
Yeah.
Shoot.
So yeah, I don't know for sure.
We'll clean it up.
Okay.
Are we all good with like the original draft, like mixed use as presented?
Yeah, I think that's what we all meant, right?
That is certainly the intent that I heard.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
No, thanks for that clarification, Michael. I was trying to like keep it all track.
And whether it's appropriate or not for one of us to, I don't even know if we can make a public comment if that's the case once Dave listens to it or feels that necessary. If city commission wants to call on us to, maybe that's appropriate.
And I had another thought.
Oh, Aaron does have a comment.
Because we didn't have all the official members here, we have suggested that we postpone or give them the option to postpone until we had more members than needing a majority to pass the amendment. Not that it matters because we already did, but
right. So clarification there, Dave, is that, I mean, I know we like to keep trying to move things along, even if we have members that are absent, but can you allow the applicant to make that decision if they wish to delay?
We don't really do that at the planning commission level. It's done at the BZA level?
No, it used to. It used to be something in the bylaws, but that got removed.
Oh. Yeah.
If you
it's
want to
just-
postpone a case, you have to state why and your reasons for it and the date and whatnot. So that's what I would suggest. If it seems like you need more answers on something, you can do that.
Understood.
And you have postponed cases in the decision on cases in the past, which you can do. That's an option. That was done with the cell tower project last year on Ridge Street. But it's not a, it just, there's a number of issues that come up when you postpone. We have to re-notice the hearing if you're going to say we want to give you that option. If they want to take an option, that's not really in your bylaws to do that. Andrea, when we postponed that decision on the hearing, we didn't have to notice.
No, we don't during this meeting, because when you postpone, you have to clarify what date you're postponing it to.
Exactly.
And you have to clarify what information that you're requesting and the reason
Right.
for the postponement.
Yeah.
So it can't be because of the board, we don't have enough people, but say it could be, well, maybe we need to talk to the fire department regarding occupancy, and maybe we would want the fire department to be here or to go through the bottom floor, something like that, where you need more additional information and you feel like you can't make an educated motion at this time without that information.
And I guess the applicant could always bail during, before you reach a decision and say, hey, wait, we want to reapply before you make a decision. But that's what they'd have to do. I think they'd have to reapply.
My comment is thanks for sticking the long situation out, and thanks for helping me clarify my thoughts. I'm trying to get around some of these issues. I think it was tricky. However, as it being a recommendation to the city commission, I do think it does provide ample opportunity for other folks, to step forward and additional community input, for it if need be. So
You did great, Michael.
Yeah, good job.
Dave, comments?
No.
Andrea, comments?
None.
All right. Well, with that, we are